Hello and welcome to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. My name is Mehmet and I share daily news about latest trends in tech and entrepreneurship. I discuss topics like digital transformation, emerging technology, cybersecurity, and startups and entrepreneurship in general. As you know, sometimes I host also thought leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs to hear from their expertise about wide range of industries and how they are driving change and making impact in the world of tech and business. And today I am very pleased to have with me Dan Goodstein. Dan, thank you for joining me today. Can you just introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. So I run two professional associations focused on the automation and AI space, as well as the broader kind of digital enterprise transformation space. We have over 130,000 members worldwide, all coming to us for education, networking, advice, and coaching around these topics. And so I'm fortunate in the sense that I get to spend half my day speaking to clients about what they're working on and what their challenges are, and the other half of my day speaking to the vendor and provider community about their capabilities. So it's been fun, especially the last couple of years with all the technological advances happening.
Whoa, wow, this is like a spot on because the first thing I wanted to ask you, like, what do you see as the most significant current tech trends and how they are impacting both, the customers or consumers and, the providers at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go too far in the news to see all the talk around Chat GPT and generative AI. So that's definitely the hot thing right now. AI is not new, as most of the folks who watch it's definitely accelerated in recent years, but in recent months with this new access that the generative AI is providing. And I think what's different is for a while AI was this kind of nebulous thing that required 5 years and $5 billion of R&D if a company wanted to really implement it. And then you had sort of kind of point solution or very narrow AI solutions that are part of our daily lives. Some people realize it, some people don't even realize it's under the hood of some of the technologies that they use. But what's different now is that this Chat GPT and now Bard and some of the others that are coming out, it's really democratizing AI to a point where any individual can access it, play with it, and start seeing the benefits instead of it being this black box AI thing that it's been for many years.
Yeah, I think I'm calling it like similar to what the internet was, right? It was like the DARPANET before, and it was just like for universities and for like security and defense. And then all of a sudden, it became public, and everyone, with just a phone line was able to get to the internet. So this is exactly, you use the right, I would say, expression for that. Now, with all these talks about, especially AI, generative AI. Yesterday I just shared an episode, and I was just mentioning about what's the future like, and I'm reading a lot of mixed comments from different people. You see the people who are pessimistic, you see the people who are very optimistic. So what do you think these trends, including generative AI, are shaping the future of work, and what do you think we're gonna see in the coming years?
Yeah, I think we're at the point where we're going to start seeing leapfrog type of events, right? Where organizations may have been investing in technology incrementally and didn't get really too hurt or fall too far behind if they weren't innovating. But I think you have kind of the perfect storm of a couple things right now, right? And the first is this post-pandemic era of people that don't necessarily want to be in an office, that more selective about the jobs that they take, are more looking for the better. The term we used to use was work-life balance, but that's actually really happening now. And then you enter something like this AI aspect where it really changes the way jobs are being done. And so I think that for the organizations that have not innovated, their time is limited if they don't start really quickly, because now it's just going to go exponentially. The gaps are gonna increase exponentially. And from a job standpoint, the quote that I saw maybe a month ago, which I really liked, I thought summed it up pretty well, is that AI is not going to take your job. Someone who knows how to implement AI is going to take your job. The reality is AI is going to take your job, but not probably our job, not my job, your job today, probably our kids' jobs. And that, as this thing becomes, more and more accelerated, it will get to that point, but we're just not at that point yet. We still need people to implement it. And so the advice I give people who are kind of freaking out right now is, which was always my advice, but it's even more important now, is learn these technologies, learn how to be useful. You learn how to increase the value of your service or your individual skill set using these tools, because that's going to become a differentiator.
Yeah, 100%. And just one, I'm repeating myself because this is what I shared yesterday. Guys, AI will not come and kill you, right? Like it's just a large language model and you are the trigger for it. So don't be scared of it. And in my opinion, that also I shared yesterday and I'm sharing all the time on LinkedIn, on other social media, I'm saying that maybe this is a moment where we are redefining actually the definition of a job, right? Because maybe you don't have to work like 5 days a week, and the pandemic, like came into the place and showed us many things. Speaking of the pandemic and all the changes and how organizations should, keep innovating, one of the areas that I know, Dan, you also work on is digital transformation. Like it is like kind of a buzzword, but it's not a buzzword. So can you explain what it means in real practical terms? And I know like this is a repetitive question, but I like to hear different opinions.
Yeah.
And why do you think it's important for businesses now in this moment to undergo into this digital transformation?
Yeah, I think for me, there's a big difference that people kind of glaze over between digitization and digital transformation. It's the transformation part that people kind of forget, right? And so, to me, digital transformation is changing the way the organization operates for the digital age, not just digitizing a bunch of analog or paper stuff and doing the same process the way it was before. The business models have been changing for a long time. I remember being at the first event that we ever did that we used the words digital transformation. And I remember a banking executive coming up to me afterwards and asking, about, some of the stuff at the event. And I said, what did you think? And he said, this is all nice and dandy, but I've got a job to do today. I can't worry about tomorrow. And that's pre-pandemic and things. Right now, you fast forward, the companies that are not changing the way they do things are dying, right? I mean, the pandemic kind of accelerated the inevitable. And the AI now I think is going to even do more towards that. I mean, you look around, you see some of the traditional, box stores and things, they're either, going out of business or being sold for pennies on the dollar, because they just relied on an in-person model, people coming into stores, people doing things the way that they used to do things. And so, even some of the more innovative companies struggled with the remote workforce thing and interacting with clients in a virtual world, right? And so it's a matter of survive or don't survive. I think it's that drastic. And as I've alluded to before, for the organizations that haven't started yet, maybe this AI stuff is an opportunity to kind of catch back up.
Yeah.
But your customers are not buying the way they used to. Brand loyalty is at an all-time low. People want convenience, people want experience. People are not going to put up with the rules and bureaucracy that they did in 2019. And so if you're not set up to deal with that or even thrive in that environment, you're going to lose.
Yeah. But sometimes I heard from different people, yeah, we want to go to this journey, right? But we are facing some obstacles. Like, what are the obstacles usually from your side you are hearing or challenges that companies they are facing during this transformation journey, and what's your advice to overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, my advice is to stop being delusional. Some of these organizations live in this world where they have blinders on and they think that things are always going to be the same and not change. And for a while it was, hey, things are going to change. Now it's everything's changing around you. I think it's not a technology challenge. It's a change management challenge. It's a culture challenge. It's a challenge in the way that many of the legacy centric organizations were built. The reason why the born digital companies are succeeding is not just because of the tech and the data. It's because they can move faster. It's because they understand that the business model isn't what it used to be, and they don't have as big a ship to turn. The traditional companies have to figure out how to turn that ship, because the old models aren't going to work. And so I think a lot of it is at a C level, having the direction to say, we're not going to do things the way that we used to do things. We have to move faster. We have to be less, bureaucratic. And also, something I've talked a lot about is I think the incentives need to change, right? People in large corporations are incented to be conservative, because they fear losing their job if they make a mistake, right? But there's no incentive or decentive for keeping the status quo. So I think that paradigm needs to shift. I think organizations need to start incenting people to take risks and innovate, like you've seen a little bit in the fail fast culture of the tech space. Incent people to actually change things, and decent them from just keeping keeping the status quo that ultimately will lead to the demise of the organization.
Yeah, I think to add to what you said, Dan, I believe organizations, the number one thing they need to change is the culture, and this culture I'm calling it, bring the startup culture, bring the garage culture to your organization. Like otherwise, like if you keep, as you said, following these bureaucratic processes, it's not a transformation. It's a maybe digitization at the most, and you will not get any benefit
Yeah.
out of it. Now, back to a little bit of AI, and because it's a hot topic, what are the most exciting or promising applications of AI you are seeing in the enterprise, and how you are seeing, the future in this area?
Yeah, on the generative AI stuff, people are very excited because it's the first time they've seen a lot of these capabilities directly. I'm not quite as excited because I've seen some of these things, for over the last couple of years. But what I am excited about is the next iteration. Right now, you put your information and your prompts into these things, and they're giving you kind of general information scraped from the web, right, from their training data. But imagine that the next iteration of that within your organization, where they understand who you are, they understand what your job is, they understand, they have access to your databases and can learn. And so, this idea of a digital AI assistant, or digital twin, or just we used to say in the automation, a bot for every employee, that can be very, very powerful, and also allow people, take away the fear a little bit of this is going to take my job, and make it more of an enablement thing where it actually makes your job better. It makes you more productive at your job, makes you actually want to go to work every day because, the bot and the automation and the AI is doing a lot of the grunt work for you. And you can do kind of deeper work, thinking kind of work, real knowledge work, instead of the monotonous kind of stuff. So that's exciting. I think we're at the point where you're going to start seeing, digital twins and real AI assistants, not the promise that the Alexa devices and things, we're going to be. So that's one. The other is, there's some really interesting things around forecasting, AI-based forecasting, demand planning. And so, I think the analysis side of AI, which hasn't been talked about as much because, there's a lot of news around self-driving cars and image recognition. And, we cover a lot in, document capture and some of those kind of traditional back office finance related use cases, but there's some really interesting, new opportunities to in the analysis side of things around supply chain in the medical field. So that's exciting. And then the third I would mention is again, a lot of the automation and AI, at least that we cover on our network, has been really focused on operations, but there's some really innovative things happening, and you see it in ChatGPT in customer facing,
Yeah.
customer experience centric AI, where again, this paradigm of people led, customer experience is going to change. The reason it hasn't changed too much is because people tend to hate chatbots that are based on, decision trees, and they're not really that smart, and you end up wasting a lot of time and then having to speak to a person anyway, and you wasted a half an hour chatting with this thing. But as these things become really actually intelligent and actually can execute transactions and things, the customer experience changes as well.
Yeah, and I think if you allow me to add, yeah, one company who's leading the way with what they showed us is Microsoft with the co-pilot approach they brought. And I just watched in the morning, what they are doing with cybersecurity, and they talked about that the next iteration, as you said, it's like the language model that could somehow, I'm not sure how they're gonna do it, but they're gonna be able to read your own data without leaving your premises, right? And then build on that, all the features that you can see today with ChatGPT. So I think this is very, very interesting. So I like also the branding Copilot. I think Microsoft, they did good job in the branding part and letting people not be afraid actually of AI. Like, I'm a co-pilot with you. I'm not just pushing you
Right.
out. So I think it's good. But what do you think are, like, from, I would say, we know that these models can be biased. Like, where do you see the other risks in implementing AI at corporate world, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that one of the challenges is that black box thing I mentioned before, right? So there's scenarios where, and I think Microsoft was one of the examples where there was a tech writer who, got into a very odd conversation with the chatbot, and Microsoft couldn't even explain why it happened, right? And so you have things like that where there could be security issues, there could be cybersecurity issues. There could be, as you mentioned, bias issues. At least right now, and the reason why I'm excited about what, things like what you're talking about, where we take that application, but we put it within our own, data and lives, is that the current scenario and this kind of, Google's doing this AI powered search and Bing's doing this, is that it's still pulling data from the internet. Right. So, at least right now, hopefully a somewhat educated person looks at their Google search results and says, that's a credible source. That's not a credible source. Right. That's kind of the issue with social media, right? Is that
Yeah.
people tend to, promote and things tend to go viral that are not necessarily true because people aren't doing the work of going back to the source. That gets worse with AI, right? If you start trusting your chatbot, whatever the interface is, to give you the right answer to a question without knowing it's where it's sourced the information, that can get dangerous very quickly. I noticed on the Bing version, they actually give you their sources on the bottom, which is kind of interesting. I know ChatGPT is not doing that, but it gets to a point where do we get to a point in society where we just trust the answer and don't actually try to figure out where it came from. And then you have the business model thing. I actually have my podcast later today as well, and we're talking about regulation. We're talking about the regulation of tech and AI. And I'm typically very much a let tech be tech kind of guy, but I am kind of concerned about the lack of regulation in the space, because the motives, just like in the social media world and the tech world as a whole, the motives have been advertising driven, and so and subscription driven. So if there's no checks and balances there, what incentive do these companies have to give you the right answer versus giving you the answer that's most profitable for them?
Yeah. Dan, you mentioned something about forecasting and sales, and I have also like I work in sales for quite some time. So, how do you see, the role of marketing sales changing in the context of all this new technologies like generative AI, and with whatever you want to attach to it from other digital technologies?
Yeah, marketing and sales is probably the most immediately affected by at least the current generative AI, ChatGPT, and things. I was talking about it for a while, and then I started playing with it myself. I had to write a promotion for a new coaching service. We're offering automation coaching service that we're launching, and I kept putting it off because I was busy and I didn't have that time to really get into a creative zone and write this sales promotion. And then I said, hey, what am I doing? I gotta practice what I preach here and try this thing out. And in 35 seconds, I had 3 promos, 4 LinkedIn posts, and I had to do maybe 10 minutes of editing, and I was ready to go. And so that on its own is siloed, right? I did that separately from my work environment, and then copy and pasted it in and put it into all my platforms. But it's not too far fetched, and you see a lot of these integrations already happening where I won't even have to leave my office, or I won't have to leave my email platform. Some of the we do a lot of sales and marketing outreach for people that are targeting automation and AI and digital transformation centric companies. And we're actually looking at some technology now that automates the entire sales process, from finding the lead, reaching out to the lead, multiple channels, email, LinkedIn, text messages. I mean, it basically does, obviously gets to the point where it books the call for you. So it's taking over a lot of the sales process, and actually writing emails that are better than most people.
Yeah, I tried these features, by the way, like writing emails, and it's pretty much good, I would say. So what I have done is, just for the sake of playing, I don't know if I'm gonna release it or not. So I just used some no-code tools. I integrated with OpenAI, and then like I have like ready prompts now. So for example, I say I need a sales promotion or campaign targeting banking industry, and I want one, two, three, and then like it just give
Yeah.
me the prompt. I tried a couple of times the email. It's mind blowing. And sometimes, Chat GPT, because it has the knowledge up to 2021, if I'm not mistaken, and anything that up to date to that cut off, it's very good. It's very
And
good.
that's based on it now, right? Imagine a scenario where it has all the history of every email you've ever sent, and what
Yes.
your database looks like, and what your target audience looks like, and then can search the web for the top Google search terms, and it pulls all that data together to create a truly customized outreach. And in the world of marketing and sales, the big thing for a while has been kind of this idea of mass personalization, right? Of being able to personalize an outreach and say, here's what I think you should care about, what I think you care about based on your LinkedIn profile, or what I know about you. This thing, does that, on steroids.
Like I'm just like came to my mind. Maybe the next SDR or BDR would be AI. I'm not sure. Like it's just food for thought.
Yeah, we have a team of SDRs and BDRs that do outreach for B2B tech clients. And it's always been a challenge because most people that do sales, SDRs, BDRs, or just sales in general, the misconception is that they're good at all of sales, right? The reality is sales is prospecting, it's lead generation, it's meeting, you're doing meetings, it's qualifying, it's doing demos, and then it's nurturing and negotiating and closing. That's not the same skill set. It's very unlikely that one person is going to be able to do that. So SDRs that are actually really good at talking and booking meetings are typically not as good at writing emails, or at least automating emails and doing things systematically and putting information in a CRM. So, we're actually working on, a solution where, the SDRs and the BDR, they don't have to do any of that. They just do what they're good at, and the rest of the process is done for them. And so they spend, again, a good example of, they spend their time doing what they're good at, and what they like doing instead of the other 80% of junk that they have to do now.
That would be great to see, I would say. Like focusing on, as you said, building the relationship with the customer, like talking to them. I see this is more beneficial. Just I have still two questions for you, Dan. Like other than AI, like you mentioned digital twins. So how do you see, for example, maybe a merge between also these technologies with something like blockchain, IoT, like can you see something like happening in that space in addition to the AI in the enterprise area?
Yeah, I mean it's finally at a point where we used to have this term years ago, digital convergence, and it was kind of like this fantasy futuristic term. But I really think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. Now that you have stuff like generative AI, and some of the other pieces in place around, everything's cloud based and the compute power and those sorts of things, and now you have, like you say, the blockchain. I mean, there's a lot of scrutiny and criticism right now about crypto and NFTs and the metaverse and things like that. But the reality is that people are living more and more of their lives in a virtual, internet-based world, whatever you want to call it, whether you call it the metaverse or the kids these days already have a term to not reference the metaverse or the virtual world, but to reference the real world. They say IRL, in real life, to denote the fact that it's happening in the physical world and not in the virtual world. So that paradigm has already shifted from a generational standpoint. And so, the idea of, all of these technologies working together to create, again, this assistant or digital twin that can be your co-pilot or even execute things on your behalf is not that far-fetched. You add things like blockchain to it, where, you get away from the middlemen of whatever it is, banks or other institutions. And this thing has access to your wallet and your preferences and your accounts, and even learns what what you would do in certain situations. And you get to a point where maybe we're all not just living to work or working to
Exactly.
live, but we just get to the point where we just we put these things on auto. I love the co-pilot thing or autopilot vernacular, because that's really where I think it goes.
Yeah. Final question for you, Dan. Like, final advice you can give to enterprises, different sizes, and where they can find more about like your business, your institute, and your podcast.
Yeah, my advice is if you've already started changing your business models and transforming, accelerate it. And if you haven't, get going, because you're behind, right? And I know I know it's hard, but it's not optional at this point. The other thing I would say is, be customer centric. There's so many people that I speak to that get caught up in their policies and their rules and the way things are done today, or the way things were done yesterday, or the limitations of the technology stack that they're using. The customer doesn't care about any of that, right? At the end of the day, the customer will leave you in a second. Even if you're a big brand now, we're learning, right? Except in the banking space, where people were going to small banks and now they're going back to big banks because they don't trust the small banks as much now. But other than that space, people are moving on to lesser known brands who give them a better experience versus the big brands. So you got to do it. Do the change management, do the work, and then find people that can kind of help you through the process. Find people that have done it. What's great about our organization, just based on feedback from members, is that there's always somebody who's further along than you and have been through some of these things, and then there's always people kind of behind you that are looking to learn. And so we've tried to kind of create this ecosystem where people can get advice not only from top-notch subject matter experts and coaches and advisors, but from each other, and learn from others who have actually done these things, actually had these problems, what obstacles they hit, what their issues that they had, humps that they had to overcome were. And so, yeah, I mean, we're available. Like I said, we have two organizations. ERPAI.com is the Association for Robotic Process Automation, Software Automation, AI. And then for kind of all other things digital transformation related, it's digitalenterpriseinstitute.com. Membership is free, and you'll start getting all of our content and best practices and things.
Good. I will be sharing these links in the episode description. Well, Dan, thank you very much for your time today. I really enjoyed, the discussion with you, and I hope the same for my audience. Thank you very much for your time. And by this, we would end today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. As usual, if you have any comment, if you have any questions regarding this episode or the show in general, you can reach out to me either by email, or you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn. And as I say every time, don't forget to subscribe either to the YouTube channel or to the podcast, which is available on any podcasting platform of your preference. And until we meet in the next episode, thank you very much.
Thank you.